There was major drama at Ferrari headquarters. A heated argument involving Lewis Hamilton erupted with such intensity that the entire team was left red-faced, shocked, and completely unprepared ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Tensions and voices rose, and the Ferrari boardroom suddenly turned into a fiery arena of emotions, a situation the team had never imagined would occur at such a crucial moment. What triggered this emotional outburst within Ferrari? Let's discuss it. Ferrari has always been portrayed as a legendary place, built on expectation and the belief that anyone who wears red will become larger than life. But this season, that belief has been shaken to its core. What started as a hopeful new chapter with Lewis Hamilton turned into a dark episode that the 7-time world champion finally revealed himself. And it all came to a head in Brazil. After one of Ferrari's most chaotic and embarrassing weekends in years, Lewis Hamilton stood before the cameras and uttered a line that instantly shattered the silence of the paddock. It wasn't dramatic or contrived. It was utterly honest, and that made it all the more poignant. Ferrari knew they were in a difficult phase, but no one expected Hamilton to speak so frankly. Hamilton hadn't come to Maranello seeking sympathy. He was already aware that Ferrari had past wounds, internal pressures, and public expectations that could overwhelm anyone. He came for a challenge, for the final chapter in his career. But what he found was a labyrinth with no way out, a team racing for perfection and stumbling over its own mythology. Ferrari arrived in Brazil hoping for a comeback. The opposite happened, however. Charles Leclerc crashed out before completing the opening corner, falling victim to chaos beyond his control. Meanwhile, Hamilton endured a race that gradually unravelled. A damaged car, a loss of downforce, an illogical penalty, and finally, the painful decision to retire. Each radio message sounded heavier than the last. It wasn't just technical frustration, it was the tone of someone who had struggled with uncertainty for too long. Behind the scenes, the impact was instant and brutal. At the most inopportune moment, Ferrari president John Elkann launched a scathing critique that immediately shook the team's foundations. Talk less, drive more. It was a comment that he may have intended as a pep talk, but to the drivers and crew, it sounded like a cold, sharp punch to the ribs, right to the heart of the problem. From that moment on, one thing that could no longer be hidden was clear to everyone. Ferrari was not doing well. The pressure from top management collided with the frustration of engineers running out of solutions and mechanics losing their way, leaving two drivers caught in the middle of an increasingly uncontrollable internal storm. Brazil wasn't the cause of this mess. It simply brought it all to a head. Lewis Hamilton, usually so careful with his words, could no longer hide his irritation. It was a nightmare. This short but brutal confession was a sign that all the accumulated problems of the previous months had finally come to a head. Following the Leclerc incident, Ferrari pinned all their hopes on Hamilton. In reality, however, his car was already damaged before the race started. Engineers later admitted that Hamilton had lost most of his rear downforce. The SF-25 suddenly turned into an uncontrollable monster, displaying brutal mid-corner oversteer and inconsistent rotation. Hamilton described its behaviour as having two distinct personalities. He wasn't fighting for points. He was fighting to stay on track. Then came the 5-second penalty, prompting Hamilton's most cutting remark of the season. These guys are a joke, not to Ferrari though, but to the FIA. John Elkann's comments sent shockwaves through the Maranello factory. However, even at this worst possible moment, Ferrari's engineers proved themselves to be at their best. Several key figures in Hamilton's garage acted swiftly. They realised that the nightmare Hamilton had been referring to wasn't an exaggeration. They knew the SF-25 had deeper structural problems. They studied the data all night, analysing everything from aerodynamic losses and chassis instability to snap-over steer moments that could occur at any time. Meanwhile, team principal Fred Vasseur played a crucial behind-the-scenes role. Although he often appeared calm and measured in public, sources close to the team said he was actually suppressing intense anger at the FIA and frustration with political pressure from Ferrari's top management. Behind closed doors, Vasseur was struggling to maintain the stability of a team that was beginning to fracture from within. In this increasingly tense situation, Vasseur was perhaps Hamilton's only emotional anchor, the one who remained steadfast as the storm began to shake Maranello. The days after Brazil brought an odd atmosphere, almost as if a storm had just passed, leaving an overly calm sky behind. Ferrari wasn't conducting a routine evaluation. There was a tense silence where every step felt heavier, and every glance between engineers carried unspoken worry. Everyone was talking less because everyone was thinking more, reviewing data, weighing up decisions, and trying to understand how the red team had got to this point. Hamilton himself didn't fight back. He didn't respond to Elkan's comments, didn't blame the team, and didn't raise his voice. Instead, he remained silent, removed from the internal intrigue, and let the moment speak for itself. His silence spoke far louder than anger ever could. It was a statement that didn't need amplification. When he finally spoke, he did so in a calm, measured, and resolute tone. He came to Ferrari not to give up, but to truly fight and restore glory. However, the phrase, living in a nightmare, remained at the heart of it all, because it wasn't just about one race or the Brazil incident. It was about the pressure that had been building since the start of the season, the ever-increasing expectations, and the red dream that was slowly turning into an increasingly difficult burden to bear. Ferrari's biggest problem isn't just a car that's difficult to drive or a setup that changes every weekend. The underlying issue lies much deeper: a reactive, emotional, and divided internal culture. This is a far cry from the Ferrari endurance team, which is disciplined, unified, and fresh off a resounding victory in Bahrain. Questions are looming in every corner of the paddock, from the engineering room to the analysts' comments. How can the two sides of Ferrari be so different? Why can the endurance department build stability and a long-term vision, while the F1 division continues to fall back into old patterns of pressure, ego, and snap decisions? The answer is painful but undeniable. Ferrari F1 is too influenced by internal politics and too quick to disintegrate under pressure. There's no room for error, yet mistakes stem from the haste and drama that ensues. Hamilton recognised this dynamic from his first day at Maranello. The fans could see the turmoil on television. Now, the entire paddock has realised one thing: Ferrari is at war with itself. The pressure is now higher than ever. Fans know that this is about more than just penalties or a damaged car. It's about the identity, culture, and future direction of Ferrari. Everyone knows that what happens after Brazil could change Ferrari's history and alter Hamilton's legacy. The story is far from over. The next chapter will determine whether the nightmare ends or deepens. What do you think triggered the emotional outburst within Ferrari that shocked the team ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix? Share your thoughts below.